you were treated well, but you had 21 bosses in 21 years.
I did, yes.
Now, I want to just kind of go there for a second. We've now built out the 4 businesses that you've done.
Yes.
Never dropping the first ones while you're doing it. Right? It's like the guy, I want the chicken, I want the fish, I want the rice, and I want the salad, but I'm still going to be in the chicken and fish and rice business. So I did it. So you had 21 bosses in 21 years.
I did.
Explain how that worked. Was it they were there when you moved to a new thing, or they were the ones that were being rotated?
Well, Morgan Stanley was actually pretty good at moving people around to different departments
to teach them.
To teach them.
Oh, so this wasn't a negative?
No, not at all.
Okay, because I always took it as a negative.
Yeah, no, it was actually kind of amusing because about the time you got a boss broken in, they were off to the next
You had to break in the next one.
You had to break in the next boss. And I think one of those along the way, actually, I worked for the same guy twice.
Really?
So
he came back around?
Yeah, he's 2 of the 21.
Okay, fine.
Along the way.
Was he better the second time?
He was, because I told him I wouldn't put up with any of his crap.
You knew all this stuff already?
I knew what his management style was.
Okay, right. What, did he stay within his grounds?
Oh, yeah, acquiesced immediately.
Right.
You know, when you have good people on your team,
you just let them go.
The best thing you can do is get out of their way.
Right.
I tried to do that with my staff. Hire the best people you can find, and then get out of their way. Give them a good foundation.
We've talked about, given the sports craziness we both have had, and understanding Red Auerbach that trained me, and obviously me playing baseball and basketball, and you growing up in Pittsburgh, and Mark Cuban, and all the football teams, and the understanding of how people develop. You and I have had many conversations over the decades, I'm not even say years, about how to make people better. And we were talking about that before, because the book that I'm putting out with Oliver Taylor of my site, davidgurwitz.com, I was able to basically adopt a kid 30 some odd years ago. And you've met Oliver. I brought him to your office.
Sure.
We almost did something, together with you, and maybe we will still. And Oliver was a leading scorer in high school, 35 points a game, no 3-point shot in 32 minutes. Right. And he wound up going to Seton Hall after 2 years of junior college, and played for PJ Carlesimo, as you know, and won the Big East tournament, last second shot against this school called
Pittsburgh.
Sorry to dig it in Villanova and Alonzo Morning School, Georgetown. And Oliver had to play point guard. And this is a guy, he never didn't average 30 a game. All of a sudden, it's 11, 12, and he's the point guard. To this day, being a cop in a school outside of Atlanta, who is saving lives, and they all know me, they all know him. I've been there many times already. He says that experience of going from the guy that averaged 35 a game to being the point guard is enabling me to do what I'm doing now. So I'm so grateful that I went through that, even though at the time it was not uncomfortable. I used to go down and see PJ and go, PJ, let him shoot. Me telling PJ Carlesimo. At least I wasn't grabbing his throat. Like, what's his name? We don't know. Like Sprewell, right? But PJ go, have big guys. I used to talk to him because I brought him there after. So you and I have talked a lot about all your formative thinking, how you got from A to B to the point now. And now that I'm listening to you with the 21 bosses, I never knew for 30 years that it wasn't a negative. I'm saying it right now. I always thought
it was actually humorous. I would tell my secretary, if my boss calls, get his number. Because it did change so frequently. Now, I will tell you, at one point, it became a little complex. At one point, I was reporting to 4 different bosses at the same time.
Really?
And matrix reporting does not work.
No.
Especially when the 4 aren't on the same page. And not even in the same departments.
Right. Okay.
And same buildings. And
forget about political leanings. We're just
just in general, that doesn't work. I was reporting to the global head of credit risk, the global head of market risk, the head of wealth management risk, and I forget who the 4th one was.
And you had to understand all the nuances of each business segment, that person's personality and the whole big company structure and where it fit into the overall scheme of the economic environment.
Yeah, you have to figure out what your role is, your role player.
I remember we used to talk about it all the time. When did you think about it on the way in and out?
Commuting. I commuted to New Jersey, so when you commute an hour and a half each way, it gives you a lot of time to think.
It's funny. Bruce Springsteen, when he first was found by the guy that found him and found Dylan, same guy. The guy who found him, I'm forgetting his name now. he used to give Bruce a ticket to take the bus, and Bruce would write a song each time coming in. He'd write, like Blinded by the Light was written by one song, and he paid $3, I think 12 cents at the time to take the bus in. So commuting is definitely advantageous for thought. That's what I've always felt, you know?
Absolutely.
So that was, wow, you did so many things there and so many nuances, and you did it successfully because they didn't throw you out.
No, actually I made it to managing director, which, as you know, on Wall Street is not an easy title to attain at Morgan or Goldman.
We went out to eat and you treated.
I did, yes.
I remember. Lower Manhattan.
Those are great memories.
Yeah, well, you know. I'm so proud of you.
Well, you know, Morgan Stanley did, great events. For new managing directors, they did a full day program in the city.
Yeah.
You know, private dinner and reception at the Museum of Modern Art.
Yeah.
They really first class all the way.
Yeah.
And John Mack and the senior management team really.
So you enjoyed your time there?
I did. I learned a lot. I worked for a lot of really smart people, and I learned something from each one of them because their management styles were all a little bit different, and their agendas were different, and their work ethics. They were all workaholics.
Yeah.
Type A personalities, but I learned something from everyone.
Really?
Yeah.
That maybe for another time to no names, but I'd like to hear person one, person two, because I know you could probably go deep on each one and what you learned from.
Every person.
No, I know, because you used to tell me this guy I learned from this. This is one of the things we've always talked about. You know, you always enjoyed when we'd be together and go, you have more degrees than, you know, my oven, because I'm a lawyer, CPA. But the thing that's most important is curiosity. Like, so what? I have degrees. I did it to avoid school loans. You know, I'm a bright Jewish kid. You're gonna stay at school. You don't have to pay your loans back. You know, and so I to this day, being, you know, approaching 64 and you're approaching 46 or whatever, something like that. I never was good in math.
I wish it was 46.
Yeah. I still feel the thing that's lacking, and maybe it's because technology crowds people's ability to think, or neural pathways have changed, I don't know what, is this curiosity. Now you see it in Silicon Valley, you see it in a lot of places, there is this amazing curiosity. But overall, I don't think people allow themselves the space to be curious. And we've always shared this.
It's also the time to think. If you go back to the early 80s, if you had a loan request, like the one I did for your cleaning supply business, you would send in the information. I would have time to review it, think about my follow-up questions, right? And formulate a structure or a proposal that we could then discuss and negotiate, right? But I had time to do that. And then, you know, if you go into the mid-'80s, you know, people started FedExing the package, right? It wasn't mailed to you. So now you had one day to think about it. And then I remember the first time I was working at Summit Bank and a client said, I want to fax you something. And my boss and I looked at each other and said, what's he mean?
Yeah, you didn't
fax.
Yeah.
And we found out there was one fax machine in the whole bank, and it was in the chairman's office.
Really?
And it came out with the curly paper and the little wires, you know. And
you had to rip it.
Yeah, and you had to actually photocopy it immediately because that ink would start to fade off the fax, you know, but it looked like a scroll coming off the machine. But you think about that, people then wanted quicker answers. And if you fast forward today with, you know, email and text messaging, people want instant gratification.
Loans.
And it doesn't give you time to think about whether, and you should think about it relative to your experience. Have you seen something like this before, and how does it fit a box or not?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't fit, how can I mitigate some of that risk?
Right.
And but what the element that's missing is the time to think about it. You react based on your experience.
So when you left Morgan in
I left in 2012.
Right. And then you didn't join the new career move of switching from commercial to credit unions because you had some personal family things.
Yeah, my mom had been diagnosed with esophagus cancer 6 months after my dad had passed away from it.
Yeah.
And so I took a year off and went to Pittsburgh pretty much every week to make sure she got all her treatments and surgery. And you know, God bless her, bought her an extra 4 years of life through those treatments.
Amazing. I remember.
Yeah.
I mean, we lived through that.
And I was glad I was able to take the time and financially be able to do that, but more importantly, have the time to do that.
I'm sure she...
You only get one mom in life.
Absolutely.
You know?
And she's in a good place.
Sure.
Absolutely. And then you made a decision, I remember processing it with you, that you were not going to go into the commercial world. We talked about doing some hedge fund thing together, you and I. That was pretty substantial.
It was.
And you said, I'm going to go and make a decision and take a job in the credit union industry.
Right.
So let's talk about what a credit union is.